and Jersey City has canceled its St. Patrick's Day parade along with all other city-sponsored events. Local leaders doing what they can to combat the spread of the deadly coronavirus, which has already claimed one life in the Garden State. Right now, we are joined by Jersey City Mayor Live, Steve Fulop, who is outside the Office of Emergency Management with another major announcement for us this morning. So good morning to you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for joining us. What do you have?
Hey, Dan, how are you? How's it going? Well, I mean, we're just taking very proactive steps. I mean, it's uncharted territory, and there's a lot of uncertainty around testing, time to get the virus, how it contracts between different people. So we're trying to be as aggressive as possible. Yesterday, we announced that we were canceling all city events for the next week, and then we'll take it week by week. We're trying to make sure that large events that aren't city sanctioned or with city involvement have an attendance record, because Health and Human Services for the city is required to track people and involvement if somebody's contaminated. And then we're going to be putting curfews on nightclubs for the weekend and for the next week, because those are uncontrolled environments. I mean, you just walk through the logic of it. You know, there's a lot of conversations around controlled environments. By that I mean schools. By that I mean workplace environments. And you know who's in and out of those. The nightclubs and the bars attract a lot of people. We classify that as uncontrolled.
So what does a curfew look like? What's the time frame of a curfew?
So we're going through that right now. We're probably going to be looking at either 9 or 10 o'clock. So, you know, restaurants we want to allow to stay open. We're kind of trying to find a balance, but when things get a little bit more crowded, densely populated, and we're attracting people from a lot of other towns, we want to limit that.
Understood.
Everything that we read and all the guidance we get is to limit social interactions, and so we're trying our best to put restrictions around that. So we think we're being smart and being cautious. Yeah.
Are there any confirmed cases of coronavirus, as we know right now, in Jersey City? No.
No, there aren't, but there are more and more in our surrounding areas, and we just view it as a matter of time before we have some confirmed cases.
So I want to talk to you just as an elected official, right? You're in charge of a very large city there. You're in the Office of Emergency Management this morning. What is the mixed messaging here with canceling city events, putting a curfew on towns and restaurants, but then still allowing schools to be open and for people to go about and ride the PATH train to go to work? Is there a bit of mixed messaging for the public right now?
No, well, I think we do need some direction from the state. I only am responsible for Jersey City and what's happening here. On the schools specifically, I mean, there's a fine line there with regards to putting people in additional harm's way. You know, if people don't have home care, they might give a child to a grandparent. People rely on those schools for meals. We have a very large immigrant population, a very large underinsured population. So we're putting plans in place for the schools. The superintendent has spoken to that. We're doing extra cleaning of the schools, but we're trying to find a reasonable balance of making sure that people are safe, but also not putting additional hardships on people.
And the schools are prepared.
We're being very thoughtful around this.
Schools are prepared if they need to actually close down.
Yeah, the schools have a plan in place for a couple weeks. They're working on that, and they had an announcement on that yesterday. So they are putting plans in place. But again, you know, there's a lot of families that you put additional hardship on, and you might create a worse situation, unintended consequences, by doing that. So we're trying to find that balance.
I know you're very busy. You're about to head into a very important meeting with the Office of Emergency Management. I want to ask one last question about testing, and testing specifically in Jersey City. Is there enough testing in your city for residents who may call that Jersey City hotline and say, hey, I think I have symptoms, I want to get tested?
Well, there's a process for that, and the hotline is set up in order to walk people through that process. Yesterday, we had somebody show up at City Hall with a mask on and saying that he was contaminated because his father has coronavirus. So, you know, you have all sorts of these situations. The process is that we take certain information from you, you send you to your doctor then does initial screening. Pending on that initial screening why the person is quarantined, then they get the additional COVID-19 test. That goes down to CDC. CDC then responds. Right now, that's about 72 hours, and that's where the testing is. So
it's a long process.
There is concerns around the testing. It's not exactly something that Jersey City controls, but we're walking people through that process in a responsible way.
And lastly, a curfew. I'm just confused by the curfew, because does the coronavirus only come out after 9 p.m.? I mean, you still have people in those restaurants earlier.
So of course. So what we're trying to do is control when you have larger gatherings in closer quarters. So we're trying to find the balance. We have been attracting a lot more people into our nightlife and nightclubs. There are larger venues, harder to control. And so if you have 1,000 people in one of those, it's very difficult than having a restaurant of 25 people.
Right.
And so we're trying to find that middle ground, and we're taking steps in order to kind of control that, and we think it's reasonable.